So guys, we've created Tarv Long Ale. He's going to be a dwarf bard, we've decided. By finding a cool, awesome image that we really enjoyed, we came up with a concept that Tarv Long Ale will be telling the tale of Tarv Long Ale in the story and reveal him as he escaped from his people and why he escaped. Doesn't mean that he was necessarily like escaping prison or anything like that, but we know he escaped. We know he has a difficult past, and Tarv blames himself of that past in many different ways. In this next portion, we're going to actually be covering the timeline portion. So in this timeline portion, it's important to note that you don't necessarily need dates. You can say that, whatever age Tarv is, you can break it up into 3 portions. So beginning, middle, and end. And the end being the current period of where you are starting. And it's important to note that while, it's the end, it's not the end of your story as a whole. The story continues, the story's been told. So do remember that as we go forward, and I'm going to be displaying some images that will hopefully help you track through this. So you can see by this picture, what I've done is given you the birth and the current, saying that's where I started, and that's the current timeline, or where the campaign, or where at in the actual story. What the deal is, I've also broken it up by color, beginning, middle, and end. Beginning being the red, middle being the green, and the end being blue. And this helps you kind of organize it in a manner that can help. What I like to do when I create a character is I give them a life-altering event or something that has changed their mentality or changed their state. And it could be as simple as someone coming of age, or it could be something as complicated as some demon creature came into my life and tried to, take over my body, and it completely changed everything about me and the way I perceive things. And in the middle, it goes on where, you can be like, okay, well, now I'm in the teen years or that young adolescence and growing up. And that's kind of like where another portion of your life has started, and you're no longer the young, completely young, adolescent teen that you were or whatever. And that correlates where you start to grow into what you are now. And the end is really just the events kind of before you find yourself in the party, kind of like how you got into the adventuring and things of that nature. Okay, for the second part, what I've done is I've taken away my little block squares, and I've done there's lines, you know what I mean? Kind of what you would see more traditionally in a timeline type event. So I've added my birth parents. That gives you kind of a history of your people, and they can be whatever. It doesn't really matter. And then I've added just the lines, the color lines, and that represents a transition line of events in my life, right? Of Tarv's life. And the death of my father, or Tarv's father, was a significant event that helped him go from adolescence into minor adolescence or adulthood, or that transition period of being a young adult. And then secondly, on the green line, you can see where the leaving mentor gave way to the point at which I was starting to begin my adventuring life, or choose my class, so to speak, right? What the heck am I going to do in the future? And then it goes to the current, and that's where we leave it there. Okay, so in this last portion, right before I kind of finish the timeline portion, you'll see that I've added a little bit more. So in the basic concepts, and again, you can make this as complicated or as detailed as you want. I'm trying to give you the basic, simple, easy, because sometimes you can overwhelm yourself really quickly. But with this, what I've done is I've started with the young age, where I figure that most dwarves raised in a dwarven stronghold or keep or town or village understand blacksmith training, would understand the dwarven combat. And then the more important to me for this character was that, again, working the mind with the father right before the death of the father. And one thing that's important to note in this portion is that there's actually no actual dates on this. I have left that open because I don't necessarily, maybe I don't know how old he is. I don't know how old I want this character to be and how experienced they are. So right after following the death of my father, you'll notice that of Tar's father, again, I'm saying me, right? So I apologize. But Tar's father, Tar left the homeland on his own accord, and the mother was sad. That gives you some details into maybe why that happened. Maybe it's just a simple outline right now. Secondly, Tar is starving in the wilderness, wants to die, basically. Sorrow there. There's a little bit of anger, maybe things like that. But again, I'm leaving it open to later interpretation. I'm just giving myself a timeline of events that I could help simplify everything, right? And then thirdly, the elf found me, gave me advice to live for. And then shortly after, it follows the leaving the mentor. Okay, and then following that portion of the timeline again, we have first non-dwarf city arrival. So Tarv arrived in a village or city that was non-dwarven or the population was not primarily dwarven, I assume, right? Just writing this out. And of course, I can write whatever I want, but I'm trying to lay it out to where I can think it out. And then lastly, found a local tavern, and a bard named Lorgon opened me up to new trade. So maybe that's where I started kind of learning the ways of the bard. And then shortly after, maybe I left there and found another tavern, or maybe I stayed there for a couple weeks or 3 weeks or however long and kind of focused under the bardic training. And then everyone else shows up at the tavern and I'm like, hey, I'm a bard. Let's do this. And so you can kind of see the timeline as it goes. And I hope the pictures help, and I hope it does make sense. Okay, guys, so that concludes the timeline deal. And the idea is not to necessarily create a timeline that's so massive that, it's overwhelming with information. This is just to get you to the point to where you're writing that outline, you're writing that rough draft of your stuff. This lays it out to where you're not trying to go back and forth and overcorrect yourself and change and stuff like that. You have a timeline, and you can write paragraph by paragraph what happened and things of that nature. It's real simple, real easy concept, and I hope it does make sense. And I really hope that you're understanding the concept of the timeline, and that it's really just simple, concise ideas that give you a picture and paint it for you that help you progress through creating this character and creating a really good backstory. I think that's the hope for everyone, and I know some people are really good at it and some people are terrible at it. Some people don't need this advice at all, but I really hope that those people who need the advice can really start to see what I'm getting at as far as you creating this outline for your character and the concept of this timeline being a series of events that kind of write your backstory for you. But I'm Hobie Hill with Deep Dungeon Games. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching.